Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Today on Spotlight, WashU researchers are looking to develop vaccines to prevent forms of dementia, including Alzheimer's disease. Plus, artists team up with Metropolitan Sewer to create beautiful works of art to save the environment. And then find out why St. Louis school children bought an elephant in 1916. But first, the story of what happened after the Titanic sank. It's Sunday, and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Ever since he was a kid, Daniel Stone has been living with that sinking feeling.
Wherever you are on Earth, you're never more than 2 miles from a shipwreck.
But it's a shipwreck 2 miles below the surface of the North Atlantic that intrigues him the most, and he's not alone. The story of the Titanic has been told and retold since the night it sank in 1912. But the tale rarely told is what happened after that night to remember, including the race to find the wreck, the harebrained schemes to raise it, and the difficulties inherent in finding anything below the surface of the seas.
It is easier to see and map the surface of Neptune and Pluto than it is to map the ocean floor.
In Sinkable, Daniel Stone, a former staff writer for National Geographic and a former White House correspondent for Newsweek and the Daily Beast, weaves a fascinating story of history and science, uncovering the untold story of the Titanic not as a ship, but as a shipwreck.
I would love to see it. I think of all the kind of cultural artifacts in the world, when you think of the pyramids and, King Tut and Machu Picchu, the Titanic really is one of them. And as long as it's still there, and it will be there for a while longer, it's one of the great wrecks of all time, and especially it's one of the great stories.
And you hit us right off the bat with this astounding figure of how many shipwrecks there are out there. You kind of toy with this. Do you think there's 1,000? Do you think there's 5,000? What's the actual number?
I have asked this question to almost everyone I've met for several years, and everyone gets it wrong. We think of shipwrecks in kind of the big sense, the A-list celebrity shipwrecks, the Titanic, Lusitania, the Endurance, right? You and I could probably name a few dozen if we tried. But when you consider there are ships that have been used for entire human history all over the world as the only way to get around before the advent of planes and cars, the number's way bigger. According to UNESCO, it is 3 million shipwrecks in every ocean, lake, river, body of water on Earth.
And we're talking ships, not like some little fishing trawler that sank.
Ships, yeah. And UNESCO says that's a guess, and the number's probably a lot higher. And when you account for fishing trawlers and speedboats and day pontoons, the number could be as high as 30 million, but we don't know.
Well, there's all kinds of fascinating facts and figures in here, but it is a character-driven story. And you've got, I guess, 3 sort of main characters, and they are characters. How is it that the press just bought all the stuff that these guys said that, they were just making up out of whole cloth?
They wanted to. It was too good a story to think too critically about. The first character, as you mentioned, was right after the Titanic sank in 1914, an architect and mining engineer in Denver, of all places, landlocked Denver, has this grand plan to find and salvage the Titanic. And because he was a mining engineer, the press gave him the authority of saying he knew what he was talking about, finding the ship by sending out electromagnets that would attract themselves to the hull of the Titanic and raise them up on giant winches. Anyone who knows anything about engineering knows that would never work for a number of reasons. But it was a salacious story. It was sensational, almost, to think of this famous wreck, all of these recently dead people, and a way to get it back. I mean, that alone, those elements worked. It worked half a century later again with Doug Woolley, the second character, who also has kind of a zany plan. He lives in London. He's never even been on a boat, and yet he becomes the guy who's going to kind of craft this narrative and this story and gets written up all over the world for his kind of zany ideas. And the third guy, briefly, was an oil prospector, Jack Grimm, in Texas, who went looking in 1980 And he came extremely close on account of having a lot of money. He rented a boat, he got a crew, he almost found it. And if not for a couple 100 feet being off course, he might have been the guy who found the Titanic.
To hear what NASA found in the ocean worth $13 million when they were searching for the Challenger wreckage, watch the full interview at hecmedia.org. For more St. Louis stories, subscribe to the HEC YouTube channel. Spotlight STL from HEC Media.
A new vaccine technology is giving the idea of a dementia vaccine new potential. Alzheimer's disease and frontotemporal dementia are devastating disorders following the buildup of misfolded proteins in the brain. This is where WashU's Jay Radra steps in. He's an associate professor of biomedical engineering at the McKelvey School of Engineering. The targeted proteins are amyloid beta and tau. The vaccines would generate anti-amyloid beta and anti-tau antibodies
10 to 15 nanometers
using Radra's vaccine platform of peptide nanofibers.
using nanomaterials as vaccine agents. The platform itself has proven effective in multiple disease models. We've tested vaccines against tuberculosis, herpes. We've even did some cocaine-based vaccines to see if we can make antibodies against drugs of addiction. We've done HIV and a few other models. So the platform as a whole seems to be very broadly effective in multiple disease settings. And this is the first time we're attempting to address the question of whether we can get antibodies against neurodegenerative diseases. In particularly, this time we're testing about Alzheimer's to see whether we can make antibodies against proteins that cause Alzheimer's so that we can prevent the onset or delay the onset.
The idea has interest, receiving a $2.9 million grant from the National Institute on Aging, part of the National Institutes of Health. Radra partnered with Meredith Jackrell, Associate Professor of Chemistry at Washington University.
We study protein folding and misfolding, and so we're really interested in understanding how proteins misfold at the biochemical and biophysical level, and then how that misfolding drives different neurodegenerative diseases.
The research team says, in particular, having an effective and safe vaccine for Alzheimer's disease is gaining importance. Recent Alzheimer's drugs have not had the results the science community had hoped. So, Radra and Jackrell are designing vaccines that will train the person's own immune system to take out the accumulations of amyloid beta and tau proteins.
The nanofiber serves as a carrier to take the protein in, stimulate the immune system, and have the immune system make an antibody to that protein of interest that you're delivering with the nanofibers. So the nanofibers are a delivery vehicle to any protein that you want to put into an animal to test whether the vaccine is efficacious or not.
So in our lab, we basically want to compare Alzheimer's disease proteins to our nanofiber fusions. If we add our tau amyloid fibers, we'll see when we add those to cells, they get taken up by the cells and cause more aggregation, and that causes a fluorescent signal that we can read. Our hope is that when we take our nanofiber vaccine materials and we add those, we can confirm that if they are showing a proper effect in our animal system, that they don't trigger Alzheimer's proteins to aggregate in our cell line, so we would see no fluorescence.
The key to their success, the vaccine design, will not cause the inflammation that happens with other types of vaccines.
Any vaccine that's administered is mixed in with an adjuvant, and adjuvants are compounds that stimulate the immune system to cause a little inflammation, and that will prompt the immune cells to make protective antibodies and T cells. So what ends up happening, neuroinflammation in neurodegenerative patients is common. So their brains are already inflamed because there is some level of pathology ongoing. In patients like that, when you use adjuvants that actually cause more inflammation, the vaccine is not very effective. The use of these nanofibers is partly due to the fact that in the many models that we've tested, the nanofibers seem to generate an antibody response without the associated inflammation.
The amyloid beta and tau proteins are presented on the surface of the nanofiber in a way that the immune system will not generate as much inflammation.
Just got funded, so we are still beginning, so it's just this first year. We are hoping to make strides. By the end of year 2 or 3, we might have something that we can test in animals.
HEC Media, supporting and promoting the arts. Check out our features and shows on theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and more. Find this and all our award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
I love how I got the chance to open my mind and create what I thought of in my head.
From the creative minds of St. Louis's up-and-coming teen artists to your backyard, these rain barrels are both works of beauty and instruments of environmental change.
I was thinking of the Cardinals because of our baseball team, and I just see a lot of Cardinals in St. Louis, so that's what I put on my barrel. And then I just love the greenery and trees and everything.
The Rain Barrel Project stems from a partnership between St. Louis Artworks and the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District.
It's a great way to collect that stormwater right off of your home and use it to water your garden, your flowers, and have a beautiful thing collecting that water for you.
Homeowners with rain barrels can save about 1,300 gallons of water each year and help reduce stormwater runoff into streets and sewers. The teen artists at St. Louis Artworks learned facts like these during their initial meeting with MSD Project Clear.
We start pulling out key things like fresh water, saving the environment, gardens, how they will use the rain barrels. So we start thinking about all those ideas and how we can come up with a good message for the community, but also make them beautiful so people want to purchase them.
This is the biggest thing I've ever done, first of all, and it was really challenging to paint on a round surface, especially because it has these little bevels in it, which is hard when you're trying to do crisp lines like I wanted to achieve.
It's just amazing just to see that creativity. And then what I try to do is build on the apprentice strengths. Not all of our apprentices are technicians in drawing. Some, like one of our young men, he loves to do graffiti. So we played on his strength. So he came up with a bunch of positive words, positive sayings that helped him come up and formulate his barrel. This has been probably one of my strongest groups.
MSD Project Clear promotes rainscaping through its living classroom outside its Market Street entrance with plants and demonstration features. This container was painted by students from St. Louis Artworks.
You're not only protecting the environment, but you're also supporting a good cause. So giving back to the community in multiple ways.
We work with young people aged 14 to 19 and hire 180 to 200 youth annually. The Rain Barrels help to fund the projects that we do with the youth. We hire them as apprentices. We are an art education job training program, and we also offer life skill training as well as art therapy to the youth.
It's just the whole component of it was just to build up these young people, to build their confidence.
So I'm pretty proud of myself how it came out.
I think that was really nice to see how it turned out because I wanted it to look very clean and kind of flat, which I think I did a pretty good job.
St. Louis Artworks holds a spring sale on the rain barrels, which cost around $200. The group also offers custom designs.
It serves a purpose. It is not only beautiful in your yard, but it also feeds the environment.
Later on Spotlight, meet Mastermind, a St. Louis artist, producer, and songwriter. History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis. In 1916, St. Louis children pooled their pennies to buy the St. Louis Zoo its very first elephant. Public historian Adam Kloppe tells us how much they raised and what they received for their contributions.
For many St. Louisans, a summer really isn't complete without a visit to the St. Louis Zoo to visit one of the 18,000 plus animals that they have there, that they care for. And there's so many animals that people connect with, penguins and lions and hippos and rhinos and all sorts of animals, but the favorite of so many people is the elephants, right? And the St. Louis Zoo is home to 9 elephants today, and they take such fantastic care of those elephants. But there's a history to elephants at the St. Louis Zoo that a lot of us don't think about. So the St. Louis Zoo dates its history back to 1910. That's when the St. Louis Zoological Society was formed. And over the next several years, they were in Forest Park, they were adding new facilities, getting everything ready for different animals to be brought in. And in 1916, they had things set up to bring in the zoo's first elephant. In order to do this, they wanted to raise some funds so they could purchase an elephant from a circus. And so they reached out to St. Louis City school children and asked them to donate pennies to a fund so that the zoo could buy its very first elephant. And these children really responded. They raised over $2,300 in pennies. That'd be over $50,000 today. It's a lot of money. And the zoo used that money to purchase their first elephant. And they had already said that because they had worked with the schools to get those children to donate the money, that the first elephant would be named after the school board president, a guy by the name of James Harper. And they were going to call the elephant Jim. And they purchased their first elephant, and it's a female. But everyone had already fallen in love with the name Jim, so they decide they're gonna call this elephant Miss Jim. And Miss Jim arrives in April of 1916. And thousands of people show up in Forest Park the day she arrives to watch her parade through Forest Park. And the school children are really excited. There's reports in the newspapers that they're all pointing at the elephant saying, oh, my penny's bought part of the trunk, or my penny's bought her tail, or whatever it is. They just really connected to this elephant instantly. And they continued to connect with this elephant over the years. Back then, people could go on rides on the elephant at the St. Louis Zoo. So kids would show up to the zoo and they would go for rides on Miss Jim's back. It's estimated that she gave over 300,000 people rides between 1960 and when she was retired from giving rides in the 1940s when she got a little bit older. And, when she passed away later in the 1940s, thousands of people in St. Louis were in mourning. They had really connected with this animal and connected with, the conservation efforts and the animal care that were provided at a place like the zoo. So without Miss Jim, the history of elephants at the St. Louis Zoo would look completely different. And, we really need to study her history so that we can understand the history of the institutions that we love so much today.
Next week on History Spotlight, the border dispute known as the Honey War.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Great American Divers' mission statement would be just to share the joy of diving with others, to train people, to help them increase their skills through the various levels, through the various adventure dives, the specialty dives.
What Great American Divers offers to the community is a one-of-a-kind experience to the underwater world. It's a very wide age group that you can dive. You can dive from as little as 8 in our PADI SEAL team, where we teach you kind of the beginnings and slowly crawl into scuba diving. But to be actual open water certified diver, you have to be 12 years old. There's divers that have dove into their 90s. Diving is a lazy man's sport. Once you get down underwater and you get neutral, you weigh nothing, kind of like an astronaut. The closest that most people will ever experience to zero gravity is a scuba diver.
People are obviously tense about diving because it's nothing that comes natural to us. We shouldn't be down there breathing. As part of the courses, we teach emergency first aid, we teach CPR, other resuscitation. Some of the safety steps we take is first make sure our gear works. And with our buddy, make sure we review our gear so that it's operating properly, that it's on properly, that there's no problems with the gear. We have a lot of redundancy in our equipment, so there's 2 regulators you can breathe off of. If one should break, you have that. Another big safety feature is we always dive with a buddy. So if that buddy has a problem, if I have a problem, I have a ready source of air, or I can become a ready source of air for them. And the other thing is just training and experience. The more you get in those environments, the easier it becomes. I became a dive instructor because it was something I enjoyed doing, and it gave me an opportunity to get other people involved in something I enjoy doing. And it's been real rewarding, especially when you have some 12-year-old that you get them in the pool and they're all excited because they're swimming around in the pool. And then you get them out to open water and some fish comes up to them and all of a sudden they get it. There's some place that's different and new. And also to instill in them an appreciation for the planet and the creatures and the environment in general. You know, divers are very conscious of the environment because they know that there some places the reefs are disappearing through climate change or more so just through natural bacteria and things that happen. Coral is an animal. Animals get sick. And so preserving that's very important.
I originally wanted to do piano lessons, but they just didn't work out, so I decided to do scuba diving. I like scuba diving because being able to breathe underwater and just see a lot of fish and coral and just have fun.
It offers me peace and tranquility, gives me a mental break, and it's just a whole lot of fun. We have a great group of instructors here at Great American Divers who just have such a passion for teaching.
Diving for me is something that I found a little bit later in life. I'm a vet, so sometimes when you have a bad day, you strap on your kit, jump in the water, and everything disappears. The noise and everything in the background kind of fades away, and it's just you and the underwater world. This place is truly a family. We care about what we teach, and we just want to give the experience back.
HEC has been bringing you positive programming and award-winning content for decades. Arts, education, culture, in-depth discussions, films, and more. All in one place, hecmedia.org.
Collaboration, honestly, has been at the center of my art.
Collaboration in this city is, to me, it's ultimately the key.
I feel like collaboration just makes sense, like iron sharpen iron, and then you can also build something together.
St. Louis, how y'all feeling today, man? And we gonna vibe out with one another. It's like, hey, look.
My name is Muhammad Mastermind Austin. I've been making music ever since I was 12 years old. Looking back at how music came into my life, it was really cool and amazing because, like, it was from my dad. And my dad, he managed some reggae bands back when I was younger, and we would be traveling and moving on the road. It started from just a very safe place, you know? And my dad kind of like nurturing that inside of my life for a space for me to create. In general, Master Camp, it is a platform for artists and creatives. It results in an annual free boot camp that we do every year. It's a 6-day boot camp. Like past 2 years, we provided them with performance coaches, with classes of like how to create a tech writer to communicate to a venue, how to advance your own shows, strength and stamina classes, performance critiques, guerrilla marketing, like everything that you need to go from a hobbyist to a professional performance musician. For me, there's like two ends of Master Camp. There's the Master Camp that you see that provides space, tools, resources, knowledge, make it accessible for musicians and creatives. The Master Camp that has incubated over 95 performance artists in the past 2 years, helped artists acquire over $100,000+ funding for their own personal projects. But ultimately behind that is really just a passion project of mine. I was just touring across the country with my homies, my brothers, and watching artist survival mode, like, it left a place in my heart that I'm now filling up with creating space for my community.
Master Camp has helped a lot, man. It's a lot of stuff that like people don't realize you have to do as an artist. You gotta do videos, concerts, your own marketing until you get somebody for it, you know? And Master Camp is a dope outlet to show people all the ins and outs.
I think the biggest thing that Master Camp has brought to my art is a personal confidence. A lot of the things that we talked about in Master Camp were things that I've touched on before, but never really had the confidence to go out and actually do or confidently present them.
It was literally getting up and getting out of your body and performing in front of everyone. You couldn't choose the song. A song came on and you had to give the energy to, actually having to stand up and sing and project and make music with other people.
I feel like that's like the easiest way to put it. Like you can make dope food on your own, but Master Camp will teach you how to make the cafe or the restaurant.
Welcome to the gym, y'all. It's turf on the floor, like it's grass here, it's murals in the background. It's 300 square feet, it might be a little hot, you know what I'm saying? But we have poured in love into this space. And then throughout the year, we do different bits of auxiliary programming. One of the auxiliary programming that's just super fun is called Open Aux. It's pretty much a platform that allows for artists and creatives. It's like a show and tell. It's like, yo, I've been working on this demo. I've recorded this in my car. But a place and space for artists and creatives to share with one another and then like seed new collaborations literally from the space itself.
During the day, I am a licensed trauma therapist. So being able to come to the gym and collaborate with people who are also following a dream that's not as practical as maybe my 9 to 5 has been very just releasing. So places like this and people like Mastermind and institutions like Master Camp have given me kind of space to just release and let go.
So the vibe at Open Aux is super chill, super fun, which I need as someone who may have a little anxiety around sharing what I'm working on. It's a super important space just for the art community, creative community to have here in St. Louis.
Being in St. Louis, it's that reminder that this is like one smack dab in the middle of the United States. It's very accessible for you to hit the road and go travel and push what you preach. Throughout the years, that really just got stamped in our philosophy. It's like, go travel, go see the world, go learn from the world, bring it back, and carry that same St. Louis energy with you whenever you do.
St. Louis is not a perfect place at all for artists. We're learning a lot, but the more that we learn, the better it's going. There's become more opportunities for bigger stages because of connections and collaborations. There's become more opportunity for artists to actually make money for a living.
Go look at every other city, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, gritty cities with real life and real oomph to them, but it's being told by the people who are on the ground moving it. And I think that's the shift that's about to happen in St. Louis. So when you see things like even what we did down in St. Louis City SC and the ability to make sure that the stadium is playing local musicians, the stadium is licensing local musicians to instill in that heart, hustle, spirit mentality and make something rock solid. So we're growing, we're morphing. Ultimately, though, it's a reminder that we need space. Let's see what happens when space is garnered for creatives to create.
Next week, minimizing the negative impact of rainwater runoff on the environment. Plus, how Ameren gives poles a new life after they're taken down or replaced. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.